Hi, I'm Zack from Kid2Kid Tutorials, and right now we're going to be practicing differences of squares. So for our first problem we have, evaluate the following, A, B, C, and D. So you probably already learned squares in pre-algebra, but just in case you didn't, squares are when you multiply, like in this case we have 5 squared, and what that means is just multiplying 5 times 5 again. So 5 times 5 is the same thing as 5 squared. Same thing with the 4 squared. 4 times 4 is the same thing as 4 squared. So let's start with A. 5 times 5, or 5 squared, is 25. Minus 4 squared, which is 4 times 4, is 16. And that equals 9. Now moving on to B, we have 6 squared, 6 times 6, which is 36, minus 5 squared, which is 25. And that equals 11. Now, I noticed a pattern here. So 5 squared minus 4 squared is 9. And 5 plus 4 is 9. Same thing applies with B. 6 squared minus 5 squared is 11. And 6 plus 5 is 11. So let's see C. 7 plus 6 is 13. Let's see if this equals 13. So 7 squared is 49 minus 6 squared, which is 36. And that is equal to 13. So now 8 is probably going to be 8 plus 7, which is 8 plus 7, which is 15. So 8 squared is 64 minus 49, which is 7 squared, and that equals 15. So there's a pattern in all these. A is 5 plus 4, which is 9. B is 6 plus 5, which is 11. C is 7 plus 6, which is 13. And D is 8 plus 7, which is 15. For a second problem, we have x equals z minus the square root of z squared minus 5. And 5y equals z plus z squared, the square root of z squared, minus 5. So find x when y equals 2 over 3. So we have a formula. If a minus b times a plus b, then that equals a squared minus b squared. So we have that here. So now to get that, we need to multiply x equals this times and 5y equals that. So we have to multiply those two to get this formula, a squared minus b squared, which is going to be much easier. So first we start out with x equals z minus the square root of z squared minus 5 and 5y equals z plus the square root of z squared, the square root of z squared minus 5. Okay, so we have that. We multiply x times 5y, which is 5yx or 5xy. It doesn't matter. So equals z minus that times z plus that. And remember the formula. And that is a squared minus b squared. So that's z squared. And then the square root minus the square root of z squared minus 5 squared. So we have that. Remember, we're going to simplify this down. Remember, when you have a radical over a number or a variable, or both, and you have an exponent of 2, these cancel out. The radical and the exponent of 2 cancel out. So then you're going to be left with z squared minus 5. So z squared minus, parentheses, z squared minus 5. Minus 5. So we have that, and we'll simplify this further. We'll substitute the negative sign into the parentheses. So 5xy equals z squared minus z squared, and then plus 5. So the reason why it's plus 5 is because when you multiply a negative by a negative, that's a positive. So imagine there's a 1 right here. It's the same thing as a negative sign or a negative 1. Those are the same thing. So, so when you multiply that in, it's a negative z squared and plus 5. So we have 5xy equals z squared minus z squared plus 5. And we have 5xy and then equals, these cancel out, and 5xy equals 5. So now we can divide by 5 to find what xy equals, and we're trying to find for x, so then we have to divide by y. So xy equals 1. Then we can divide by y, and then we'll substitute it 2/3. So divide by y on both sides, and x equals 1 over y. But that's not it. We have to substitute 2/3 for y because we're trying to find for x when y equals 2/3. So we substitute 2/3 in for y. So x equals 1 over 2/3. And this looks confusing, right? So we can write it out as x equals 1 divided by 2 over 3. So then we have a formula for this. If you have 1 divided by 2 over 3, you can flip the second fraction and change the division sign into multiplication sign. So x equals 1 times 3 over 2 because you flip the second fraction over. And that's also called a reciprocal when you flip a fraction over like that. So 1 times 3 over 2 is just 3 over 2. So x is equal to 3 over 2 when y is equal to 2 over 3. So x equals 3 over 2 and y equals 2 over 3. Thank you for watching Kid2Kid tutorials. And if you like our videos, please share, like, and subscribe. Thank you.